Okay, so we're going to do an activity now that you heard that there's a couple of people taking this for the second time. I had invited past participants from several years ago because a lot of our activities have evolved over time. This is one that we did in probably after the first 2 years we started doing this one. So if you took it before, you probably remember it. Here's the virtual version. Polar opposites to the ends of the earth. So just kind of this day of first day of the workshop, wanting to get you to starting to understand a little bit more about the Arctic and the Antarctic. So like in your notebooks, Bill had you label polar opposites on 2 of the pages. And so if you would go to the right-hand page that you've already put the title up and draw this Venn diagram on there with Arctic at the top circle, the bottom circle crossing it, and Antarctic at the bottom. So like you've got your polar regions, and then both in the middle. And I'd like you to brainstorm as many facts as you can. And it says 5 to 10 minutes. Let's cut it down to 5, just because we're running a little shorter. Our break went a little longer with the Padlet. So let's do it 5 minutes and just get as many as we can. And hopefully now you've got Padlet down, because what I'd like for you to do is post a picture of it once you have it together and post it on Padlet. So go ahead and take that 5 minutes and we'll see how you're doing at the end of 5. Yeah, I'll do.
Do these 2 circles for the entire page?
I would put it on the whole page, so you have enough room in that both in the middle. Otherwise it gets pretty little in the middle. Try to give yourself a big enough place to write.
Thank you.
So I am trying to attach the picture, but somehow size, I am having problem with the email sending the size issues.
Why don't we help you with that in the next break? Right now, let's go ahead and go with polar opposites, but if you have any problems with the technology, we can help you out with that, okay? So basically your notebook looks something like this. My windows have gotten very messy here. Hang on a second. Okay. So if you can you access Padlet, or are you having trouble actually getting onto the Padlet?
No, I can access Padlet, but the camera is moving in a circle. So, and it says Padlet updated elsewhere. That's a message coming. So I didn't have any problem last time, but
that circle is never a good thing.
Yeah, I know.
Well, the idea was to share those Padlets. If you can take a look at the Padlet Venns, and then in your notebook, I'd like you to just make some observations from everybody's Padlets. Normally, if we were together, I would probably have had charts up on the wall, either the big Venn diagram on the wall. There's also, I'll show you a link to one that has pictures, and I make string Venn diagrams on tables, and students can sort the pictures. So if you have a group of students that have no background in polar science, no information about the Arctic or the Antarctic, they can take the pictures and try to sort them into Arctic, Antarctic, and both. So we've done it usually at School of Ice after people have traveled all day and gotten there on Sunday. We've done both. If people felt really revved up and smart and got lots of answers in their head, we'd say, go do it on the chart, where you've got to pull the information out of your head like I asked you to do today. If it was people, I can see people coming in after traveling all day and exhausted and say, hey, you go over here and take these pictures and see if you can sort them. And so you can judge your own students as to what would be the best way to present it. But for today, if you look at Padlet and look at the other, are there some, I don't have it open because I've got my screen covered with my presentation. Did some get successfully uploaded? Okay, I see one. Can I get a thumbs up if you got it up there?
No,
Hey,
it looks,
Louise, I'd like to do this, but I missed the part on, so I'm behind, but on Padlet,
Okay.
there's a way to take a picture somehow. Can you use your computer?
yeah, you click
Go
on the
ahead.
camera on the Padlet. When you click a plus sign on Padlet,
Where is that camera?
Click the plus sign. You're going to add a new thing onto Padlet. There's a little bar with a plus sign at the top. Click that and it'll give you a new window.
Okay, it is just slow. Luis, what happened is like for me, it's an old phone, so it's very slow process, but we are getting there.
Okay. So Leanne, if you click that plus, do you see a camera?
Yeah, so then if I do snap, is it gonna just take the picture right then
exactly.
with
Yeah.
the computer?
Yep.
Yeah.
Even though I don't really see what I'm taking a picture of.
Well, you see your computer screen. That's what it's taking. Is
Okay.
the Zoom window. So what I'd like you to do is those, if there are a couple up there at least, look at Padlet, look at their answers, and look to see, are there answers that you would question on your own then? In other words, you maybe put something in the Arctic and somebody else put it in the Antarctic. Would you wonder if it goes in both or if one of you was not correct? So take a look and see if there's any that you question about your own. And is there information you want to add to yours? Go ahead and do it. That's okay. You see something, you go, oh, wait, I knew that. That's cool. I hadn't thought of that. Go ahead and add it in. And then were there answers you disagree with? Maybe you know that something shouldn't be in the Arctic, it should be in the Antarctic, or you have an idea that it ought to be someplace else. Those are the things I'd want to discuss later. And if you had any other thoughts while you're looking at them, just take a minute and look at those other ones, add to your notebook, be thinking about comparing Arctic and Antarctic.
I like this on Padlet. If you haven't, you all probably know this already, but if you double click on the pictures, it goes up to full screen so you can read everybody's.
Are there glaciers on the North Pole?
Well, that's a good question to write down, and then we'll talk about them. So,
I thought they were only on land. Okay.
yeah, so that's the kind of thing I want you to be noting, and then we'll talk about those things.
It's because it doesn't want to take my picture.
Yeah, I'm also just getting the circle of death there, so.
Yeah, me too.
I wonder if it's just too many of us.
Do we have to sign in or sign up on Padlet?
No, just the link.
I think it could be bandwidth issues at like my personal bandwidth. I don't know.
Could be.
I can't see anything other than Zoom when presentations are up. I can't bring up the Padlet if share screens is up. I don't know if anyone else is having that problem.
If you hit up at the top where it, oops, I just lost mine. Where it says you're sharing Louise's screen, next to it, you can click on that and it'll say exit full screen. Then you can get to the things behind the main screen.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
But I just lost my whole toolbar, so.
Oh.
Okay, so let's ask that question. That was the question was, are there glaciers at the North Pole? So does anybody have that answer that you're pretty sure of?
What is it? Can you guys repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah.
Is there a glaciers? Did you say, is there a glaciers in the North Pole?
Yeah, I think that was Dominic had said that, I believe was the who asked that question. So what about glaciers at the North Pole? Are there glaciers at the North Pole?
Well, there's sea ice.
Yeah.
There's no continent.
Yeah.
And then, but this is Arctic, Antarctic.
Yeah.
So that includes Greenland.
Anything above the Arctic Circle. So I was thinking mountain glaciers when I wrote glaciers down.
I think
the
we
Arctic-
do.
Arctic is an interesting place because it is that frozen ocean, lots and lots of ice on the frozen ocean, but part of land is in the Arctic Circle from lots of different countries. So if there are glaciers on those different countries, then yes, there would be glaciers in the Arctic. The North Pole, I think, was the question. And at the North Pole, where would that be found? Is that on land or on water? On sea ice?
That's water.
Water.
So if the question was North Pole, then no, there would not be glaciers because that's sea ice. If the question was the Arctic, yes, there could be glaciers. So any other things that you disagreed with or you had questions about that you saw on other people's Padlets?
Well, we know that penguins and polar bears for sure.
And where would those be?
South
Where
Pole,
the-
right? South Pole is the penguins, and the north is where the polar bears are.
Yay! When I first started this and I saw the Coca-Cola commercials with polar bears and penguins at Christmas time, I thought if we could just get people to know that polar bears can't eat penguins, we would be there. So I think we've arrived. I'm really excited. So,
Well, we posted something really cool about a crater in the Arctic Circle, I believe. And she posted a little article there that's actually a little 1-minute video on how NASA found it. It's pretty cool. Or at least that they did find it in some data. So that was
and
pretty
I missed what they found. Say that again.
A crater,
Oh,
a
cool.
large crater, the 22nd largest crater on the planet, I guess. That's what it says.
Yeah, they found it
Where
under the
is that?
Greenland ice sheet in Greenland. Yeah,
Oh, that's-
I posted the NASA article. They think it's like around 79,000 years old, maybe younger, but I thought that was really cool. So
Yeah, I saw that article too. That was really very interesting.
I mean, I know there's been discussion about there may be craters beneath Antarctica too. I think it's the Wilkes-Barre crater, but I don't know how definitive research is for that one. But this one was a definitive study, so I thought that was kind of cool.
Okay, so any other questions, anything that you saw that you either weren't sure when you put it on your Venn diagram or you saw it on somebody else's facts about the Arctic, the Antarctic that you weren't sure about before we go on? Okay, I got a thumbs up. All right, I'm going to share my screen again.
I have a quick question about navigating on that Padlet. How do you go? All I'm seeing is the top two things in a column.
You have to go to each column and then just scroll with your fingers on each column scrolls by itself. So each column is a
Oh,
self.
okay. There's a hard to see scroll bar there. Thank you.
I don't see the scroll bar. I can only scroll with my fingers. So
Right. I don't have a touch screen.
you're right. Okay, I see the scroll bar too. Yep, it is hard to see.
It's a dark blue capsule type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have some color impairment, so.
Oops, I seem to be, okay, have a problem here. It's not sharing. Let me try this again. There it is. Okay, so I just wanted to share real quickly that icedrill-education.org has polar opposites activity, and it has pictures like up in the right-hand corner that you can download from the activity in the left-hand corner. And so that's on the icedrill-education.org. And if you haven't noticed yet, that is website is at the bottom of almost all the pages of our presentations. The middle website too, just so you know, icedrill.org is the science side of the website. And on that one, Mary was talking about the long-term science document that we have up there, and also the drilling document that is all the goals for the next 10 years for both drilling and for the science. And that's really interesting if you're interested in where the science is going. These are really nice documents that are on icedrill.org. So we're going to do one more thing and try one more technology thing to kind of get us into this. We're going to take the polar plunge. You're going to take a little test with me that's mainly just for fun. We're going to use Pear Deck for this activity. So you're going to be opening a new browser window. And I recommend that you use your phone if you have a smartphone that can open up a browser window, just because you'll be able to see my screen on your computer screen, and you'll be able to answer the questions on your phone. So if you can open a browser window, otherwise you're gonna have two windows open to do this piece of technology. You'll go to joinpd.com, which is Pear Deck. Show me a hand if you've ever used Pear Deck. Okay, so Matt, a little bit. Okay, Pear Deck is an add-on to Google Slides. So we're gonna give it a shot. It'll be I've practiced it, but it'll be my first time in real life with real people. So here we go. So go to joinpd.com, and while you're doing that, I'm gonna bring up the presentation. So the next screen that I share will have.
Sorry, it says we need a code for that.
Yes, the next screen will have the code. So I have to bring up that. Just switch screens here. Takes just a second because it brings up it connects the Google slide to the Pear Deck. Now you have the code. No, I have to share my screen for you to have the code. Here we go. Okay, so you see the code now is PFLWZ, and they always have this cute little thing, purple flashlights lift warm zebras. So you type in PFLWZ into your joinpd.com window. Okay, so we have
ask us questions.
Okay, go ahead. You have a question?
It says, how are you feeling today?
Oh, you could just click on one of those faces, or you can skip it if you want. And then it'll load the presentation.
Right.
Okay. So it looks like I have 12. Is anybody having trouble and need help? Okay, so I'm going to ask you, I'm going to be asking you some questions on the screen. You're going to get the question on your phone or on your other browser window. Is there anybody that's not on a phone? Everybody? Okay, so, but Karen and Khaldoon, can you see it on your browser window? Karen's good, Khaldoon's good. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question. Keep track of how many you get right, because at the end there's going to be, you'll see, they'll say what your score is. Okay, here we go. Let's give it a try. Okay, so this is penguins make good polar bear prey. And that's going to be on your phone or on your window, and it'll have answer the question at the bottom. You're going to click on that. Your choices are true, false, or true and false. So pick the one that you think is correct and then hit show question at the bottom.
There is no send buttons. We will just keep it that way. There is
You
no,
just say show question, and then on mine, if you look down at the bottom, it says 13 out of 13 have responded. So I'm going to show you the responses now. So nobody said true. Almost everybody said false, and one person said true and false. So let's see what the answer is. It's false because penguins only live where?
Oh,
South Pole.
South Pole,
Penguins are at the South Pole.
Southern
Polar
Hemisphere.
North Pole. Yeah. So everybody got it now. So we're going to go to the next one. Half of the world's fresh water is frozen in Antarctica's ice. Pick your answer and hit show question, and we'll give you a second to get your responses in. Okay, I'm short one response, but here we go. There we go. So 7 said true and 6 said false. And the answer is false because 70% of the world's fresh water is actually locked in Antarctica's ice, and over 90% of the world's ice is in Antarctica. Tricky question, I know, but you got to make them tricky for true false. All right, the next one. Antarctica is the highest, driest, windiest, coldest place on Earth. Okay, most said true, couple false, couple true and false. And if we were, one thing you would want to do with your students on these questions is let them talk a little bit about these questions and find out if misconceptions or if they're thinking something that they could actually support as a good answer for why they chose what they chose. This is actually true because one of the things that's difficult is that we learned from probably 4th grade geography that Mount Everest is the highest point on Earth, but Antarctica is the highest elevation, average elevation. It is a cold desert. It's the driest place on Earth. It gets less precipitation than the Sahara Desert. It is the windiest place on Earth. Way up on the top of the polar plateau, that air is dense and heavy, and it starts rolling down toward the coast, and it can get up to 200 miles per hour, called katabatic winds. They're unbelievably strong winds. And it is the coldest place on Earth. I believe the temperature is minus 128.3 or 6. I've forgotten the decimal. Degrees Fahrenheit was measured at Vostok Station, which is a Russian base in Antarctica. So an amazing place of superlatives. Now read this one carefully. The smallest permanent land animal in Antarctica is a 6.3 millimeter or 1/4 inch wingless fly. Put your answer in. Couple more responses. So some of you said true, few more of you said false. This is a tricky one. It's false because it's actually the largest permanent land animal is the wingless fly. Penguins and seals come up on the ice and they're babies, but they spend their life on ice floes and very seldom are actually on land, except maybe to have some of the penguins will have their babies on land and then they live the rest of their life in the water. So this little wingless fly, and it is a tiny little speck that I actually got to see when I was there, but you have to use, I had to use a magnifying glass to see it. It is amazing.
So is there a smaller land animal then?
Well, there's bacteria, there's things like that, but there aren't very many animals in Antarctica at all. And this, I don't know of any others than the wingless fly, to tell you the truth.
So then it's maybe both the smallest and the largest.
Well, there you go. Maybe it's Antarctic Falls. I gotta look that up, Leanne. That's a good question. Whoops. Oh, I told you the answer. If you were watching the screen, you saw it. The Antarctic is frozen land surrounded by ocean. The Arctic is frozen ocean surrounded by land. Aha, everybody got that all right. I usually ask it the other way, which makes it a little harder. But that's good. That one is true, either because I showed it or because you knew it. The only direction you can go from the North Pole is south. A few more responses. Okay, we got most of you said true. We had a wide range of answers there. It is true. The only direction you can go from the standing at the North Pole is take one step off, you're going south. And the same is true if you're standing at the South Pole, you're going north. The opposite is true. Here's a good one. I like this one. There are candy striped poles at both the North and South Poles. So we have some truths, we have some falses, and the answer to that one is false, because there's not one at the North Pole because that's on floating ice on the ocean. There is one at the ceremonial South Pole, sits right at the South Pole, and it's the South Pole geographic marker. But it's on a moving ice sheet, so every year they have to pick it up and move it from 11 to 30 meters back to the South Pole because it's rapidly moving ice at that point. Russia and the US have military fortifications in Antarctica. Mostly false, couple of true, and it is false. Because Antarctica is set aside as a continent of peace in the Antarctic Treaty, there are no fortifications in Antarctica. But this one is one, when I used this with another group of scientists, and there were some pretty good arguments made because they both use their military to support the science. So you fly in on an Army cargo plane, for example. The military icebreakers bring supplies in. So the military has a presence there, but not as a military presence. Okay, two more. The male emperor penguin incubates one egg on his feet for 9 weeks, moving very little and eating nothing. You guys all watch March of the Penguins. It is true. And that poor guy loses half of his body weight while he's standing there incubating the egg. And the last question, long ago, Antarctica was much warmer and prehistoric man lived there. Whoops. Okay, so we have true, false, and true and false. And that is true and false. It's true because for about the last 400 million years, Antarctica has been much colder. It's false because no human has ever lived in Antarctica. But there are fossil remains of dinosaurs. So it's kind of an interesting thing. So count up how many you got right. We're not going to do this. I'm going to skip these.
Then should we consider it to be prehistoric? Because yeah, dinosaur we know from Alfred Wegener's theory, like he also found some fossils. But were there humans like 3 to 5 million years ago? There was like no ice. You think like interglacial period?
Not in Antarctica.
Yeah,
There
so
weren't any.
there.
I'm sorry.
Were
So-
humans there? Like you, I mean, is there any evidence for human footprint?
No,
No, right?
no humans until early 1900s
No.
or late 1800s.
Like
And
the scientific mission.
yeah, and the explorers. Yeah, whalers were actually the first people there,
Well,
but no evidence of prehistoric man.
Okay.
The continents broke apart before people, and Antarctica ended up in a place that was extremely difficult to get to until finally some explorers did. So how did you score? If you got 8 to 10 right, you can pack your extreme cold weather gear. You are a polar expert. How many of you got 8 to 10 right? Woohoo! If you got 6 to 7, penguins and polar bears can teach you a lot. 3 to 5, don't go near the ice edge. You might take the polar plunge. And 1 to 2, don't even go out in a snowstorm. You might get lost. Or 0, good thing you're here and we're glad you are. This is available for you. It'll be linked to your agenda, so you'll have access to this. And there's actually 2 presentations within this one. One was called A Cool Dozen. I cut it down to 10 for today, and called it Take the Polar Plunge for the 10. Okay. So